That's the feeling we've all had. How new shoes would make you glad, but the best time you recall when you wore no shoes at all. Back the days.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of Living Lightly. I'm Dan Dorica. So today I'm going to be showing you my hoop house, where I'm growing a lot of hardy winter greens. I've got some oak leaf lettuce here and some mustard greens back there, spinach over there, and I planted, some of this I planted probably a month or two ago, and some of it only a few weeks ago. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of harvesting today because I harvest greens and I sell them in the village, and then I also am providing my own food, getting a little season extension out of the hoop house so we can get, grow these greens through the winter time, whereas normally outside of a hoop house in this climate, this stuff just wouldn't survive. So what I do is I've got the one layer of plastic on the outside of the hoop house, and then I use a row cover that I spread over as sort of a blanket over these beds, and that protects the greens underneath those two layers of plastic. And basically I can plant these hardy greens that can survive down to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a pretty common thing that's being done now all over the place, but this was a project that I started about 4 years ago when I got a cost share grant from the USDA through the Obama stimulus package, and they paid for about 90% of the cost of this hoop house. It was sort of a spontaneous thing. I didn't plan it. I was just like, oh, this opportunity came along. Why not get one of those for Dancing Rabbit and be able to grow produce and extend the season, give people some nice healthy greens throughout the winter time. So it's been nice. The greens don't grow much during the winter time, during the dead of winter, sort of in January and February. They just sort of sit there. You can still harvest off of them, but then they'll start growing first thing in like late February, early March here, and then I can start harvesting them and get a jump on the season, whereas people might have to wait until May before they get greens from their garden in this area. I've been able to improve the soil in this spot and have grown, hundreds of pounds of greens out of this area in the last 4 years or so. These have been growing really well in here, even though there's actually no top on the hoop house right now. I lost the top this summer in one of the hurricane-forced winds during a storm. We had a lot of storms this summer, and the top was getting a little frayed and old. It was over 4 years old, and the warranty is only like 4 years. And you can see the side curtains of the hoop house are getting pretty frayed as well, and I'm replacing those. Hopefully before too long I'll get the rest of the plastic and be able to start putting new siding on this hoop house. You can see I've got drip irrigation tubing set up here. These are tubing with drip emitters. I don't like to use the drip tape because it's way too disposable. This stuff will last a really long time. So this is what I use in here, and as well out in the vineyard. We're right near my vineyard. It's just outside there. I don't know if you'll be able to see it if I hold the camera up higher, but that's my vineyard project, which is something for another video. Right now I've got the irrigation disconnected because we've had some freezing temperatures, but I've got a little valves over here to turn it on and get it going. It's actually just gravity fed, and I'll take you outside around here. So there's piping that goes more or less underground over to this water tank out here, and this big blue barrel is not really anything related to the water system. It's an experiment with a sand filter that didn't really work, but this big tank is the holding tank for water that I pump from way down over there where our swimming pond is. And I have a solar panel and a pump down there on the dam that pumps the water uphill into this tank, where it then gravity feeds down into the hoop house irrigation system. When I have the top on the hoop house, I can have that piping connected and still get water pretty late in the season. The irrigation for the vineyard is all disconnected because it's not a good time to have that all exposed to the elements and temperature. At the same time as I got the cost share grant from the USDA for the hoop house, I was able to get a grant from the Department of Energy to pay for this irrigation system, solar powered irrigation system. They actually paid for the solar panel, the pump, the piping, and this big tank that holds the water. So Department of Energy, if you're wondering whether your investment in this project was worthwhile, it's allowed us to grow food in this hoop house and grapes in the vineyard using only solar power. So this is our swimming pond. Not many swimmers in it right now because it's pretty cold. I imagine the water's pretty damn cold at this point. And the pond dam, and then there's my solar panel and pump down here. I did have a battery system set up for it, but it works just fine without that, and it's actually kind of better to have it only kick on when the sun's out. So I've got just this simple solar panel and then a SureFlow 12-volt pump under there. But it's a really simple system, all solar powered and fairly reliable. Sometimes I have to come out here and reconnect it and because it's not drawing for some reason, but it will take a couple of days to fill up that tank up there on the hill, and then I can gravity feed out of that for my irrigation needs. Obviously in the hoop house, because it doesn't get any rain falling in the house, you need some source of irrigation. So this pipe goes all the way down to the hydrant, which has a pipe that goes through this dam, and so it takes water from below the surface, pretty far below the surface of that pond, so you're not going to get muck and other things sucked into the pipe. This hydrant is connected to a pipe and the shut-off valve is right there. It's connected to a pipe that goes through the dam and draws water from below the surface of the pond. And then if I turn this hydrant on, I'll get the flow coming out, and it's basically just like, we'll fill that pipe all the way up to the surface of the pond, and then the pump pumps it from that point into the pipe and then pushes it up, so it doesn't actually have to draw. It's much better when you're pumping water to push it than to pull it. Sort of trying to beat the clock here because I've got to make it to our weekly meeting, which is where I usually sell these greens. So I got quite a bit to do this morning before I go to that meeting. These have actually not grown that much in the last few weeks for some reason. I haven't harvested them in a couple of weeks. They're not very big, and these are sort of cut and come again, loose leaf lettuces. Normally in a hoop house they might, if they were doing it commercially, they might grow these and just harvest them a couple times when they're really young, maybe not even do that, but just do a planting, harvest it, then dig it up and replant. But I usually harvest for a while off of the same beds, just let them come back and continue to harvest off of them. It seems to work fine, and it's much easier, much less labor intensive and resource intensive. I do all the working of the beds by hand in here. Here at Dancing Rabbit we have restrictions on fossil fuel use, and we don't allow the use of rototillers, which for small-scale market gardeners, it's sort of a big, major tool that is in their toolbox that I don't have here, so I have to do this all by hand, which is much more labor-intensive. I got a pretty good harvest of various mixed greens this week. I got some arugula and a green called ruby streaks, this ruby-colored, red-colored mustard green with the deep lobes. I think this one's called Miss Puna. And then I've got some oak leaf green and red lettuce in here. So I'll mix that all up and hopefully people will be interested in buying some. Sounds like a really good combination to me. In the past few weeks I've only had lettuce, and I'm just getting the mustards in now. So they should add a nice spice to this salad mix.
glad, but the best times you recall, when you wore no shoes at all. Back the days when we were just a kid,